All right, I'm here with Seth Nuzum. Seth is a software engineer from San Francisco, specializing in machine learning. He's worked on a wide variety of projects across multiple disciplines: augmented reality, web development, 3D printing, AI, machine learning, you name it. If it's tech related, Seth's probably seen it or done it. Seth is currently working on Flow. It's an AI-based project management tool. Today, we're going to talk about Flow and where we see technology headed in the future. How's it going, Seth?
Going well. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure to talk to you. So I want to hear the story behind Flow. How did this product come to be?
So yeah, Flow is an intelligent project planner using AI. It started out as a research project in university. I got an opportunity to work with that professor one-on-one, and we developed Flow to be like an automated Trello board. So if you use Trello or any peripheral Kanban apps, you know that it takes so much time to develop your plan for any piece of software you want to build. And it's so tedious to break up your tasks and allocate them to the right person on the team. It just takes so much time away from actual development and things that engineers actually want to do. So Flow alleviates this bottleneck and does it all for you.
That's amazing. So it does a lot of the heavy lifting where you have to delegate out tasks, and part of software development is knowing when to work on what. You just have a list of tasks, but you're not always working smart if you're just picking out of the hat whatever task comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your next steps with Flow?
So right now we are working on refining the way the task board propagates. And we're also looking into adding some different models. Right now we're running GPT-4o, and we're looking into Claude 3.5 Sonnet and maybe using some ping ponging between the two of them to converse and find out what the best path forward is. As you know, o1 just came out, so we're looking at that model. That has a lot of chain of thought reasoning and multi-step processes. So I think that would be really good for reevaluating what tasks go where and what order they should go into and who should do them, etc. One thing we're excited to do is we are developing some project manager related features where if the team's progress is not up to par, we can shift the tasks based on priority. So we can automatically rearrange your board, which I think also is a time suck for a lot of developers. You know, every stand-up they have to go in and say, where are we? What tasks do we need to push to the front? What can be pushed to the backlog? So a lot of automatic meeting scheduling could be replaced too. I think it's 2024, and I think it's time to move to something better than just a static drag and drop Trello interface.
Yeah, I love the concept behind Flow, and I'm excited to try it out once it's available. You have any predictions on when it will be released, at least like a minimum viable product?
Yes, we're shooting for October 12th. We plan to have a version 1.0 out then. We have a running version right now. There are just some bugs that we still need to flesh out, and we want to make it a little more feature rich. We do have a list of about 100 users ready and waiting to download and try it out. We got some really great feedback at BuildSpace. I've been having a lot of one-on-one meetings with people in SF. So they've tried it out, given their feedback.
That's awesome. I'm pumped to try it out. So let's switch gears and talk about AI. You know, it's the topic of the century right now. So what are your thoughts on the current and future states of AI development? We just had a big announcement this week with o1's just came out. I haven't gotten a chance to really look much into it yet or try out the model myself, but it is exciting to see where things are headed. And it's like every week there's something new with AI. And I think this is really just the tip of the iceberg, you know?
Yeah, OpenAI said that they named it o1 because it's an entirely new paradigm shift from just doing the transformer models with the multi-headed attention parameters and what they were doing with the GPT-4 models. They said that it has the ability to introspect before it shoots out your response. It does use multi-step reasoning. It utilizes neural networks in tandem with reinforcement learning. So it is much more like how a human would approach a mathematical equation. We would do it one step at a time and check what we've seen in the past and say, is this consistent with the results we're getting? But yeah, really, really exciting times. It's been interesting since 2022. OpenAI just dropped this very, very influential and powerful tool onto the public. And they said, do what you will with it. They didn't provide a lot of instruction about how to use it. That's another thing we're trying to work on with Flow is we're doing a lot of prompt refinement techniques. So we're guiding the user through how to form a correct prompt in order to utilize these large language models better and more efficiently. And we're also doing a lot of prompt molding on the back end. So there's a lot of things that go on the back end of Flow before the API sees the user's request. But yeah, very, very exciting times in the field. I think there's going to be a lot of questions around what do we do when the data runs out, the training data. People are looking into synthetic data, and they're trying to see if that could substitute the shortage of the data remaining. And there are also questions around context windows and how far could you move a context window? How far do you need to expand a context window? Thoughts around relevancy queues, kind of like how a human brain forms a dendrite. If we deem something that's salient enough, then we form a new dendrite. So same thing with the relevancy queue. Is this thought relevant enough to keep it at the forefront of the large language model's mind? So a lot of organizational improvements coming.
Definitely. Well, as you said, we're running out of data. So it's not about getting more data. It's about maybe using our data more efficiently. And like you said, creating it synthetically. It's interesting what you said about Flow on the back end, where you're doing a lot of prompt management or prompt engineering. And, it's garbage in, garbage out. So you have to make sure we don't really know what's happening in the middle yet, but we have to make sure that the prompts that are going in align with how the model's going to interpret them, so that you're going to get a result that aligns with what your expectation is, basically. So
exactly.
It is a very exciting time to be alive, though, to witness this happen and be able to build tools on top of it. So it's so much opportunity. If you fast forward 20 years, what would you say changes in society? What would you say stays the same?
20 years, that's a big prediction. I mean, the crazy thing is computer science is very, very new. It's less than or equal to 50 years old, a very new field, and we see its applications permeate into every aspect of society. So I think the same thing with AI. There's not a single facet of how our world functions where AI is not applicable. That's my conviction. I think that we'll be able to distribute these tedious tasks to AI, and we will be able to focus on more exciting things. But I think a really big question right now is, how do we inject large language models into education? Because right now, when I was in university, they didn't really have a structure in place for the school. It was up to each professor if they were to allow the use of AI in their classroom, and it was just free reign, whether you used it or not. But I think that's not really the way to go about it. I think that we need to set it up in a way that it's tailored to each individual. Because I think there's so much potential to have a tailored tutor for each individual in all levels of school, so that you get a really great one-on-one education that's not available right now. And it can be cheap. Tutors right now are expensive. With AI, we could democratize this huge advantage.
That'd be amazing. And my beef with school is that a lot of what they're testing is memorization. So I could see why they have an issue with language models, because it's almost like cheating. But I mean, there was a point where they wouldn't let you use a calculator on a test. Now you're allowed to. So as technology evolves, so does our education. It tends to be a little bit slower than technology, but I think it will catch up, and eventually everybody will have their own AI teacher whenever they want. I know that's what one of my best teachers is when I'm trying to learn something new, is go to ChatGPT, Grok, Llama, whatever, and just have a conversation about it. And you don't have to feel like any question is a dumb question. That's the beautiful thing of it. You can be a complete beginner and ask what would be a silly question to ask, raise your hand and ask in class, but you can ask that to an LLM with no shame at all. So that's one of the beautiful things. And AI is just one of several technologies that I think in the next 20 years, we're going to see converge together with technologies like quantum computing, nanotechnology, gene editing. All these other technologies will converge together. And that's where things will get really interesting. And I don't have any predictions about what's going to happen. I just know it's going to be nothing like we've ever seen. We're approaching our next industrial revolution, but it's a revolution that's going to happen at a pace that's never been seen before. So it's similar to what's happened in the past in history, but it's going to be happening at such a rapid pace and on a new frontier. Very interesting time to be alive, to say the least, for sure.
Yeah, and if I can speak to your point about just how education is shaped around just memorizing facts just to memorize them with little to no reason to memorize them in the workforce, you're just going to look a lot of things up, and that's okay. I was talking to my friend last weekend in SF, and we were having a conversation about how we teach children to memorize their times tables, not because we don't have calculators, but because it's a base plate of society to then go and solve these harder math equations. So you have to do this tier, this tier, this tier, multi-tiered reasoning for life. But the next evolution of that, I have these AR glasses here with a display in them right here. And these have GPT-4 inside of them. They're by a company called Brilliant Labs. And you can look at a problem, you can look at an equation on a board, like a calculus problem, and it'll spit out the answer right there in front of you. So to me, that's the next evolution of the calculator. And then it's like, do we need to do calculus? But I think we're missing the fundamental point of why we're doing calculus. It's the understanding of how previous humans have come to think. We're learning this step so that we can then apply it to more difficult scenarios later on. I do like that question.
Wow. So those glasses are awesome. I would love to get a pair of those. I wasn't from, what brand is that? I'm not familiar.
Yeah, they're a company called Brilliant Labs, and they're the first ones to do it where they're very, very thin. They put a board in here, they have a camera, they have a mic, they have a single display in the right eye. And they did a very clever thing where they routed the batteries down to here at the end, because I think most companies, they try to keep the batteries up here and it looks bulky. But these guys, they have done it, and they're such a small company. It's funny, they beat Apple, they beat Google. Google had the Google Glass and they got scared and recalled it.
How do they compare to, I know Facebook has their partnership with Ray-Bans, and don't they have an augmented reality glasses? How do they compare to those?
Yeah, so I've tried those. I was actually at the Meta keynote last year. They're really good, but they don't have displays in them. So they can't really do augmented overlays of the world. They can't show you digital text in your physical space. They're all kind of speakers and camera. So you can talk to them, but you can't see anything. These guys managed to actually put a display in the glasses. So really, really cool.
Oh, so the Meta ones, you're not able to see anything through the glasses.
No, they don't have embedded displays. I think Zuck said that's coming, but currently no.
Okay. Wow, I'll have to get my hands on a pair of those and try them out someday.
I'd love to give you a demo next time you're out here. Yeah, let's get a demo.
Definitely, let's do it. All right, so in such a rapidly changing field, what strategies do you employ to keep your knowledge current? Are there any particular learning resources that you depend on?
Yeah, I feel like I'm always struggling with limiting the fire hydrant of information and resources that we have to us. Like a great example is I found so many good resources on Reddit, but every time I go on Reddit, it's a negative experience because I get lost down the rabbit hole of anything and everything I could be reading and learning about. So I generally try to keep it at a minimum. I would say Twitter's a great place where I can easily turn it off when the time comes. I love listening to podcasts. What else? Research papers, of course. But yeah, I think it's a question of just like limiting myself so that I get the cream of the crop. I don't spend my time on the fluff.
That's important. Like you said, it's like a fire hydrant of information. And I know with myself, sometimes I can just get so into reading audiobooks, podcasts, and I'm like, wait, I need to put the book down and get back to applying what I'm learning. It's a balance between learning and application. You need to be learning, but you also need to be applying. So it's a balancing act for sure. So what skills or qualities do you believe are most crucial for success in emerging tech fields?
Yeah, I think it's the willingness to switch. It's very tempting to hang on to a technology. Let's take a JavaScript library like React. I know it really well. A new JavaScript framework comes out about every other week, it seems. And it's kind of challenging to stay current with the times, but I think if you recognize the underlying patterns, switching gets a lot easier. So yeah, I think it's about staying dynamic and willing to persevere and adopt the language that gets it done the fastest.
Definitely. You have to maintain that curiosity so that you're not getting left in the dust behind. With every project I do, I try to balance it out where I'm using some of the information I've learned in the past some of my tech stacks that I'm familiar with, but then I'm also learning about maybe 25% new stuff that I've never done before. So for me, I try to balance it out between using stuff that I know that I'm very efficient with, like React. I can code up a web app very quickly. So stick with React on the front end, but maybe try a new library on the back end or new integration here or there. So I try to balance it out between learning new stuff and using my foundational tech stack that I'm just efficient with.
Yeah, I like that. Having a good core superset and you're using an additional subset of new things as they come up. I like that.
Definitely. Because like you said, there's a new framework every week. And if we were spending our time just learning the next framework that came out, we wouldn't get much building done. You'd be halfway through a web app and then you'd have to scrap all your code and start over. So that wouldn't be much use. Seth, it was great having you on the pod. Where can people stay updated on your journey and flow?
Yeah, so I usually post a lot of updates on my Instagram. It's just seth.nuzum, or my personal website, sethnuzum.com. We find that Instagram works a lot for flow. It's flow_AI on Instagram. Those are the main places.
It was a pleasure to have you on, man. You have a wonderful evening.
All right, yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
All right, take care.
You too.